Welcome to Cooking with the Connection. I'm Carolyn, and this week we're going to make a ham and sugar snap pea risotto with a pan-seared chicken breast and a lemon garlic pan sauce. Let's get started. We're going to start by cutting up our leek. We want to take off the top. It's kind of fibrous and woody and not really good eats. So the bottom is all that we're going to use. And we're going to cut it up into half moons because that's a way for us to get in between each of the layers and really wash them and make sure that they're clean. The way that leeks grow, you get a lot of sand in between each of their layers. So we're going to move them into a strainer and then just put them in the sink and scrub them really well, make sure all the pieces kind of break up. And then we can move them into our electric pressure cooker. I'm using an electric pressure cooker. You can use a stovetop, whichever one you have. So we're going to pound our garlic with the side of our knife, and then we're going to chop it up and mince it really quickly. Put it on top of our leeks, and then add a little bit of olive oil, and we're going to start that to saute. We're also going to add a pat of butter. This just makes it super tasty and helps to caramelize it and add some browning. And while that's starting to cook, we're going to add our ham. We want to cut it up into small bite-sized pieces. The more surface area you have of ham, the more flavor it's going to lend to your risotto. So once that's cut up, you're going to put that in as well, and we're going to caramelize all of these together. Give it a quick stir and continue to stir it every 30 seconds or so. You don't have to stir it constantly, but you just want to make sure that you don't stick anything to the bottom and that it doesn't burn. We're going to place our chicken breast between two pieces of plastic on top of our cutting board. This is just so we can pound it out, keeps everything clean. We don't have to wash our cutting board a million times. And we're going to pound our chicken breast out to about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch, just so that everything's even and flat. You don't really want one side bigger than the other. And it makes sure that it cooks really evenly. Cooker, we're going to add our rice and let that start to toast. You'll be able to smell like a little bit of nuttiness, and that's when you know it's ready for our white wine. If you wouldn't drink the white wine, don't use it in your risotto. It'll just add bad flavor. To that, we're also going to add about 4 cups of water. To this, we're then going to add a tablespoon of better than bouillon roasted chicken and a teaspoon of better than bouillon vegetable. So the two of these together make it super delicious. I use this when I haven't had time to make stock recently and I've run out. And it's got really delicious flavor, and it's actually made from chicken bones properly. So it's not really broth out of a can, and it's a little bit better and has better flavor. And add in our dried thyme. We're going to add about a teaspoon. This just adds a nice kind of herby flavor and goes really well with the lemon in the sauce later. And then also a couple pinches of black pepper. That just adds a nice little zip and spice. You can add other things, but these two are kind of my favorite, and you get a lot of flavor from the ham anyway, so you don't want to go overboard. And then we're going to turn this off and cover it with our lid and get it ready to pressure cook, but we're not going to start it quite yet. We want to season up our chicken and blanch our sugar snap peas first. And then once the chicken starts to sear, then we'll turn it on because it's only going to take about 15 minutes. Risotto only takes actually 7 minutes to cook once it's fully pressurized. So we're going to take our chicken and just cook or season one side with salt and pepper. You can do both sides, certainly, at this point, if you want to set it aside anyway and let it absorb the salt. But I'm only doing one side for ease and cleanliness. Meantime, while that's absorbing some of that salt, we're going to blanch our sugar snap peas. So into a pan of cold water, we're going to place the washed peas along with a couple pinches of salt to just season them up. And then we're going to let that come to a boil. Once it's at a boil, we're going to let it go for about 2 minutes and then immediately drain it and start rinsing it with cold water. This sets the color and keeps them really bright green and stops the cooking. And then we can use that same pan, dry it out, and then add some olive oil. And we're going to sear our chicken breast in it. So we're going to put it seasoned side down and then season the other side once everybody's in. And now we can actually turn on our risotto. So if you have a risotto button and you're using an electric cooker, please use that. If you're using a stovetop one, you want to turn it on, put it on low and set it to high heat. And then once it fully comes up to pressure, you're going to cook it for 7 minutes. So get everybody in the pan. And you want to make sure that they just are all touching the pan fully. It seems a little crowded. It's okay. I didn't have a bigger pan to use right at that moment. But as long as they've got full contact with the bottom of the pan, you'll get a nice sear. Um, so let that go for about 4 minutes. You'll see that it'll get nice and brown and a little bit crusty. And by cooking it at this kind of quick, high temperature, it seals in those juices since chicken breasts do not have a lot of fat. And if you see that little white stuff coming off, it's not blood or anything gross or weird. It's just albumin. Everybody has it. Chickens, humans, fish. So we're going to spend about 4 minutes. We're going to turn those over, and you'll see they've got a nice, beautiful brown color on them. We're going to get the same thing on the other side and then put a lid on and cover it and let them cook for another 3 to 4 minutes. Let it coast up to 160 and then take them out and let it get to 165 on the cutting board as it's resting. So if you don't think that it's brown enough after you've turned it over, feel free to flip it back over. You just want to make sure that you don't overcook it. So make sure that you're temping it and checking it as you're going. So you can see, this side's got gorgeous coloring and a nice sear. So we want to get some of that on the other side as well. So our risotto should be done just about now. Make sure that you depressurize it. If you try to force it open when it's not depressurized, it will explode. So it can be very dangerous. So let the pressure come out and then we'll take the lid off. And our chicken is done, so we can move that out of the pan and onto our cutting board to let it rest. If you cut it right now, all the juices will leak out and it'll be really dry. So give it a couple minutes just to rest while we make our pan sauce and finish up our risotto. So into the pan, we're going to add 2 garlic cloves that we've chopped up. You want to move them around while you've got the heat on. You don't want to just let them sit. They've got a lot of sugar in them, so they'll burn really quickly. So just move them around till they start to turn brown, and then we're going to hit it with a half a cup of white wine and let that wine reduce. And all of that kind of brown stuff on the bottom, those brown bits, that's called fond. It's really tasty and adds that really delicious flavor to your pan sauce. So it's really important. You don't want to wash that out or scrape it out or anything. Just let it cook into the wine. And the wine we're going to reduce to about a tablespoon, and which seems like we added all this wine. Why are we just going to let it reduce? But it just concentrates the flavor and makes it, gives you the wine flavor without the alcohol and without the extra liquid volume, since we're going to add some chicken stock. And our risotto, we stirred it and it looks a little soupy and it seems a little runny, and you're like, this isn't real risotto. It'll get there. The pressure cooker doesn't evaporate the liquid like doing it in the pan does, so we will need to cook that off a little bit. So I turn it back on to saute and let it kind of bubble. That'll bring out some of the starches, thicken up that sauce, and then the cheese is what will really give it that thick, rich, luscious quality. So meanwhile, in our pan, now that our wine's fully reduced, we're going to add a cup of water and a teaspoon of our chicken base and stir that in together. And then we're also going to squeeze in half a lemon. This is most of the sauce. The only thing that we're going to do afterwards is, once it's reduced a little bit, is we're going to add about 1.5 teaspoons of butter and let that cook together, and eventually the butter will emulsify and lighten up your sauce and you'll get a beautiful butter mounted pan sauce. This is a French technique. It's called monter au beurre for those of you who are language nuts. So starting up our risotto, we're going to add in about 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese and 1/2 cup of smoked Gouda. The smoked Gouda kind of plays off the ham and just really kind of adds that smokiness. And the Parmesan really brings some delicious umami quality and is like a salt component. Because as you noticed, we didn't actually add any salt to the risotto after we started cooking it. So our sauce, we added in the butter, and you can see that it's starting to get light around the edges, and that's the butter. It's kind of melted in. And as it cooks, it's just going to continue to emulsify as the liquid reduces down. And it'll reach a point where the butter and the liquid have kind of balanced and reached an equilibrium, and you just get sauce. In the meantime, we can just stir in our snap peas. You you don't need to cook it anymore. The risotto is going to be super hot, and we'll heat them back up through. Um, but they're beautifully cooked from our blanching. So then we can start to plate up. So our sauce, as we stir it, you'll see that it's kind of lighter and has kind of a richer color, and that is from our butter. So onto our plate, we're going to put a scoop of our risotto, and then our sliced chicken on top of that, and then our sauce on top of that, and then you're ready to eat. When you're putting the sauce on top, make sure you get a couple of those bits of garlic. They're super delicious and will just really add to your dish, of course. Unless you hate garlic, then I'm so sorry for this whole dish. But we're just going to put that on top and give it a taste, and I promise you it will be delicious. So there it is, our sugar snap pea and ham risotto with a seared chicken breast and a lemon garlic pan sauce. I really hope you enjoy and you give this a try. Have a good day.